A controversial South African figure accused by many of fueling xenophobic tensions is now at the center of another storm after his house mysteriously burned down. But instead of receiving sympathy from the public, the incident has sparked suspicion, outrage, and heated debate across the country. Because what shocked many people was not only the fire itself, but what happened immediately after. Just hours after the house reportedly burned down, Xenophobia made a public appeal asking South Africans to help him rebuild through donations. For some, it was a heartbreaking request from a man who had lost everything. But for others, it raised serious questions. And those questions are now growing louder. Many people online began closely examining photos and videos from the scene. What they claim to have noticed has fueled a wave of speculation. Some social media users say they could not see the remains of furniture, appliances, or other household belongings that would normally be expected after such a destructive fire. Others pointed out that the inside of the burned property appeared unusually empty. That observation quickly triggered suspicion. Some critics began asking whether personal belongings had been removed before the fire. Others went even further, openly accusing Xenophobia of allegedly staging the incident to gain sympathy and financial support from the public. At this stage, it is important to be clear. There is no official evidence proving that the fire was deliberately set. There is no confirmed forensic report showing that Xenophobia had any involvement in causing the blaze. These accusations are based largely on speculation, social media analysis, and public mistrust. But in South Africa today, mistrust can be more powerful than facts. And that is what makes this story so explosive. To understand why this house fire has caused such intense reactions, you first need to understand who Xenophobia is and why his name already creates strong emotions. Xenophobia has become one of the most controversial public figures associated with anti-foreigner rhetoric in South Africa. To his supporters, he is a man brave enough to speak openly about the frustrations many ordinary citizens feel: high unemployment, rising crime, poverty, and government failure. They argue that undocumented immigration has increased pressure on already struggling communities, and that someone needed to raise those concerns. But to his critics, Xenophobia represents something much more dangerous. They accuse him of promoting xenophobic attitudes and inflaming hostility toward foreign nationals. South Africa has a painful history of xenophobic violence. Foreign-owned businesses have been attacked. Migrants have been assaulted. Entire communities have lived in fear during outbreaks of anti-foreigner violence. Because of that history, any figure associated with anti-immigrant activism becomes deeply controversial. That is why this fire is not just about a burned house. It has become symbolic. To his supporters, the fire may represent persecution or retaliation. Some believe he may have been targeted because of his outspoken views. They see him as a victim who deserves support and solidarity. But to his critics, the timing and circumstances of the fire look suspicious. And this is where things get disturbing. According to reports and online reactions, appeals for financial support emerged very quickly after the fire. Some people found that unusual. They asked how someone could move from personal disaster to fundraising so rapidly. Others argued that if someone had genuinely lost everything, their first concern would likely be safety, family, and recovery, not public donations. Again, these are opinions, not proof. But in a country where public trust has been damaged by years of corruption and political scandal, even small details can trigger massive suspicion. South Africans have lived through countless scandals involving misuse of funds, false promises, and emotional manipulation. Many citizens have become deeply skeptical of public fundraising efforts, especially when they involve politically connected or controversial figures. That skepticism is now shaping how people view the story. Social media has become the main battlefield. Some users have openly mocked the donation request. Others have questioned whether South Africans should give money at all. Memes, debates, and heated arguments have flooded online platforms. Some people are saying compassion should come first. They argue that no one deserves to lose a home, regardless of political beliefs. They believe that basic humanity requires empathy, even for people we disagree with. But others strongly disagree. Critics say Mchinu cannot expect national sympathy while being accused of spreading division and hostility against vulnerable foreign communities. They argue that words have consequences and that public figures should not be separated from the impact of their own rhetoric. This has created a powerful moral debate. Should people support someone they disagree with simply because tragedy has struck? Can compassion be separated from politics? Or should past actions influence whether someone deserves public help? These are difficult questions, and South Africans are deeply divided. But this story also reveals something much bigger. It exposes the deep crisis of trust in South Africa today. Many citizens no longer believe public narratives at face value. Every major event is immediately questioned. Every emotional appeal is examined. Every tragedy is investigated online. And often, suspicion spreads faster than facts. In this case, the lack of official answers has only fueled more speculation. Was the fire accidental? Was it caused by electrical failure? Was it an intentional attack by someone else? Or was something else happening behind the scenes? At this stage, no official investigation has publicly provided clear answers. And until that happens, rumors will continue. Some observers have called for a full forensic investigation to determine exactly how the fire started. They want authorities to establish whether accelerants were used, whether the property was occupied normally, and whether any suspicious activity took place before the blaze. Others have warned against rushing to judgment. Fire experts often explain that damage can vary greatly depending on heat intensity, building materials, and how long the fire burned. What may look suspicious to ordinary viewers may have a completely normal explanation. But online audiences are not waiting for official reports. They are forming opinions now. And that is where the danger lies. Because once public opinion hardens, facts often struggle to catch up. Even if investigators eventually determine that the fire was entirely accidental, many people may continue believing it was staged. And if authorities fail to provide clear answers, that suspicion may never disappear. Meanwhile, the economic reality facing South Africans has made the donations debate even more emotional. Millions of citizens are struggling to survive. Food prices continue rising. Electricity costs are increasing. Unemployment remains painfully high. Many families are dealing with poverty, insecurity, and daily hardship. So when a controversial public figure asks ordinary citizens for money, some people naturally ask difficult questions. Why should struggling South Africans donate money to rebuild one individual's house? What about countless ordinary families who lose homes every year without national fundraising campaigns? Why do public figures often receive more sympathy and support than anonymous citizens facing the same suffering? These are painful but valid concerns. Yet supporters insist this is not about politics or popularity. They say tragedy should never become a political weapon. They argue that if people want to help voluntarily, no one should shame them for doing so. And perhaps that is what makes this story so powerful. It is not simply about fire. It is not simply about donations. It is about trust. It is about division. It is about how deeply fractured South African society has become. Because today, even moments of tragedy are immediately transformed into political battlegrounds. People no longer react only with emotion. They react with suspicion. They investigate motives. They question sincerity. They search for hidden agendas. And maybe that says something deeply troubling about where the country is heading. A society where politicians are distrusted, where activists are questioned, where public appeals are doubted, where even suffering is treated as potential strategy. That may be the most unsettling part of this entire controversy. Regardless of what caused the fire, the public response reveals how exhausted and skeptical many South Africans have become. And now, the biggest questions remain unanswered. Was this simply an unfortunate accident? Was it something more suspicious? Will authorities conduct a proper investigation? Will supporters continue donating despite the backlash? Will critics accept the outcome if the fire is found to be accidental? Or has public trust already been permanently damaged? At this moment, there are no confirmed answers. Only questions. Only opinions. Only division. And perhaps that is the true story here. A nation so deeply divided that even a house fire becomes a national debate about truth, trust, and morality. So now the question comes to you. Should South Africans contribute money to help rebuild Ngizwe Mchinu's home? Should compassion come before politics? Or do the unanswered questions make you skeptical? And if people can no longer trust emotional appeals during moments of tragedy, what kind of society does that create? Comment below and share your thoughts.